All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to Bobby Talks, ... Those dots are there for a reason. That lets you know there's always more to the story. As you know the drill. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Robert Gifford. I'm sitting here today with the boys are back in town, my friend. It's been a while. The one and only, the only critic, Nate Adams. Nate, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back in the ring. You know, it's been a minute. I don't think we've talked about movies since last summer, really.
I think I went back and listened. I think the last movie we discussed was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
Because we went on that screener, or what do you guys call it in your world?
We went to a screening. Yeah,
okay, we went to a screening, and you took me up to Novi, and that was a pretty...
yeah, we got, what did we see? We saw it in there, like the biggest screen in Michigan, I think is what it was.
That's phenomenal, too, because I've been telling people about that screen. I didn't even know it existed.
I forget what they call. They have a name for it, and I don't
know.
It's like
not an IMAX. It's like
IMAX.
Okay,
it's the biggest IMAX screen, but it's just the biggest screen in Michigan. Let's just put it that way. They had us, and of course for the new Quentin Tarantino movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, they're gonna put you in the biggest theater possible. And
deservingly so. That's the way it should be.
Right.
But it's hard to believe, man, that it's been a full year since you and I have sat down and talked movies.
Yeah.
I've been following you on this Picks and Pans podcast. For those of you that don't know, my man has started his own podcast since then. And now you're, what, 8 episodes deep?
Yeah, we've been, since like March, we've been plowing them out. So this week we didn't have an episode because of the holiday and just because I was moving.
A lot of things going on in your life.
Yeah.
Moving is a good thing.
We were going to, movies that we were going to talk about last week, we're going to talk about this week. So
okay.
That'll be next week.
So is the show, I haven't caught all of them, is it always have you and your friend Matthew Porter?
Yeah, and Matthew is just he's so willing to sit, because like I pick the films every week, that the new things that are coming out.
Sure.
And it's hard to find somebody that wants to dedicate that time, because 3 or 4 movies in a week it's a lot. I probably watch. Today, I was looking at I've seen 90 movies, new movies this year.
You watched 90 new movies?
2020 releases on top of, I did this thing called a quarantine catch-up, which I might have to start bringing back because we're probably going to go into another lockdown. But yeah, 90 releases, and so I see like on average 4 or 5, 6 movies a week. And so like he's just so willing to do it, so that's why it's like I'm gonna probably get more people in the rotation, but
no, I totally get it. I understand. I think we were talking off camera a little bit about I really like the back and forth you guys have. You bring the passion to it, and as well as your knowledge of the industry. You're credible with your takes. I think your takes are fair. I don't agree with every single one that you have, but that's what makes critics critics, and that's what makes fans fans.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, right?
Yeah, and I want to show some love to your co-host there, because I think, at least on camera here, I think he does a really good job of it sounds really good on the ears.
I'm kind of more, like I said, the passion one. I get more like obsessive and manic about things, and he kind of keeps me grounded a little bit.
Sure.
But we also have that relationship where I can just insult him about something, and it's not weird. And I've actually, I don't know if you've listened to, but I don't know if it's also because of the quarantine, but like I've been like liking a lot of movies.
Okay.
And he's just been not, and I'm just like.
Is it because you mean a lot of new movies? Or?
Yeah, I've just been like, and I went through my Rotten Tomatoes page, and I was just like, man, I've been getting a lot of positive reviews lately. Minus Artemis Fowl, which came out 2 weeks ago, which is bad.
There was 2 movies like back to back. You're like, this is the worst movie you'll see all year, and then you're like, check that. This is the worst movie you'll see all year.
It was that Kevin Bacon movie.
Oh, yeah.
You Should Have Left or something. Yeah, like I saw Artemis Fowl the week before, and then the next week I saw that, and it was like 2 back-to-back just terrible films.
You're going to have those, especially... I told you, man, Kevin Bacon, he's got a quota to keep up. He's got to keep that 6 degrees of separation going.
Yeah.
He's got to be in everything.
Yeah.
So, well, it's interesting because you and I did this podcast that we tried to do last year called Keep It Simple Stupid, right?
Yeah.
And I got a lot of great feedback. Everybody's seen of the 7, 8 episodes that I did. You were on 3 of them. And of the 3 that we did, people seem to enjoy those the most. So I'm happy that you're back, man.
I'm glad people enjoy listening to you. You got good following too. I like what you're doing too. Don't undermine what you're doing. You're having real conversations on this podcast. I mean, I'm living off in a fantasy land talking about new movies that are coming out, which is great. But you're having city council members coming in.
Yep.
You're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement with police officers. So hey, you're doing a service too.
Yeah, but and I appreciate that. But here's the thing that what I enjoy about what you've been doing is that not only did you do a quarantine catch-up, which if you guys don't know, you can do the hashtag quarantine catch-up with him. And it just basically is, since we have nothing but downtime, or had nothing but downtime, it was let's play catch-up on all of the films that you haven't seen that you've always wanted to see during your time.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah, please do. I couldn't believe some of the names you were giving me of films that you've never seen.
Yeah, it was mind-boggling to me too. It's just funny because everybody has those skeletons in their closet.
Sure, yeah.
And then it's just like as soon as I started watching one movie, I would look up this director and I would look up this actor, and then I'd pull up the list and I just realized, oh, I haven't seen that, and then just.
Would you write them down so that you remember to go back to them, or would you just?
Yeah, so I have a watch list that I add it to.
Okay.
And let's see, the quarantine catch-up, 82 films I logged.
Oh, that's incredible.
Over 2 months, and then
Give us 3 or 4 names so people can be like, how could you never seen
The Princess Bride.
Yep, crazy.
Never had seen it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Never seen it. 2001: A Space Odyssey. I watched for the first time. Braveheart, The Exorcist, Jaws, A Clockwork Orange, Singing in the Rain, Deliverance. I mean,
so let's start with the Kubrick films.
Watched a lot of Kubrick. It was good for my soul.
Yeah. Clockwork Orange is one of my. It's my favorite film that he did.
Never drinking milk again.
Yeah, exactly. But I got to tell you, I think a lot of people talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Blew my mind.
Really?
Loved it.
I think it's the most overrated piece of garbage ever created.
I was Bob. We got this is Bobby Talks.
Talk to me. Explain to me what it is that I'm missing. What is the disconnect with that film?
I just like a movie where you have to interpret it yourself, kind of like the same way with A Clockwork Orange. So I really like A Clockwork Orange. Don't get me wrong. I love the message that it sends that this man was changed by society. Right?
Sure.
He wasn't. Malcolm McDonald's character, right? Is it
McDowell?
McDowell, yeah.
Yep, Malcolm McDowell.
His character, at the end of the movie, right? He overcomes this need to like attack people because he gets sick. They hypnosis, right, or something like that. But I like this message but that's not really him. He was changed by society, and that's kind of more clear, right? But you watch something like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I really don't know what to take away from it other than, like, I don't know what I just watched, but I'm somehow perplexed and moved by it. Like the Star Child looking over the Earth at the end, it's just like, rebirth?
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know, but the music, too, the scoring.
The scoring is amazing. I will give you that. I will say this, though, is that, and it kind of goes along the lines with those Malick films, where some of them are great.
Terrence Malick.
They're hit or miss.
I haven't seen a lot of his films either. I gotta.
A Tree of Life is.
Never seen Tree of Life.
That's an interesting one. It's probably my favorite one of his. But a lot of that's got to do, I think, is because it's because it's been masked by maybe the cast that played in that as well. I think you had Brad Pitt in that and a few others. But
I'm gonna add it to the list, actually.
You should. But with the Stanley Kubrick 2001: A Space Odyssey. And maybe this was the point. And I've had people argue that this is the point, what I'm about to get at. In that movie, there's that long scene where we're just kind of going through space, right?
Yeah.
And it just drags and drags and drags.
Which one? Is it like the sequence with like the stars and the cosmos?
Yes.
What?
So here's the thing.
I went to another, dude, I felt like I was on a drug or something. I was on cloud 9. That stuff was...
It's too long. It is too long. It is to a point where it's redundant, it's torturous, and that's what people that's when everybody argues that's the point. It's supposed to be. It's not just making you feel uncomfortable, but you're physically uncomfortable because you're sitting there and you're watching this thing. That is when people will argue that that's art now affecting you on another element, another level.
And Kubrick was definitely known for pushing the boundaries and limitations of his audience, absolutely.
But my question to you is that does that really make a good director? Like, is that what I want in the sense of being physically uncomfortable? Because I didn't feel like I was being motivated to feel physically uncomfortable in the sense of like, I just felt tortured because I'm like, this is still going on. Like I had my thought, it was deep, it was perplexing, and then I got past it and I'm like, this is still going on.
I almost wonder, like you said, that's probably by design. But I think if you're having a reaction to it, whether it's in the moment at all, negative or positive, that is definitely what Kubrick wants. I think he doesn't want you to be in between. I think he either wants you to love it or you hate it. I think he probably hates those people that are in the middle because even if you hate it, you're having a reaction to it, and that says something. Another good example recently that we could probably talk about is Midsommar.
Yes, I was going to. Go ahead.
And Midsommar is another one of those long movies where there's just these long continuous takes, and it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, which is an insane runtime,
especially for
a horror film.
Yeah.
but somehow it manages to layer upon layer and like add subtext and context, and then it broadens into a wider scope. And in a sense, you could almost say Midsommar was inspired by the
you probably could
2001 in a sense, in that you have to make up your own mind about what you're witnessing.
But I feel like those scenes are more visually direct. Like the message is more direct of why it's physically uncomfortable. You know, versus like a 2001, it's like you're left to your own thoughts, which I guess is the genius of it.
And I think that's why I liked it so much, is because it wasn't telling me what to think. It let me decide. And I people don't like ambiguity. I think people like clear-cut answers.
Okay.
So I know when the movie, another recent example, Gone Girl.
Okay.
Have you seen Gone Girl?
I have, with Ben Affleck.
Yep. And Rosamund Pike. David Fincher directed. Last movie he directed, actually.
Which is incredible to say.
He's got a movie coming out with Netflix next year.
Okay.
No, in December. I don't know. It's called Monk, I think.
Who's in it?
Gary Oldman. That's all I know off the top of my head.
That's really all you need?
Yeah. But anyway... But that movie ends, and it's not wrapped up in a tidy bow. Like, you're watching the movie, and the main conflict may be resolved, but it's not, though. And people hate walking out of a movie feeling without that sense of closure. And so a movie like Midsommar or like Gone Girl or like 2001, it makes people uncomfortable because they don't know how to interpret it.
Sure. And I think that's fair to say. I just know that, and generally, I'm with you when it comes to those movies.
I like what I don't know most of the time.
And I like that I have to sometimes...
Except in Artemis Fowl, when I didn't know what was going on, and I still hated it. Sorry.
So, bottom line is, Artemis Fowl fans, this is not the podcast for you to listen to. So
I think they're with me. I think they all hated it, too.
So there are no... Okay.
There's no Artemis Fowl stands out there.
You know, you did post something recently, though, talking about Midsommar. Something that caught my eye about Martin Scorsese, potentially he did an opening or an intro to this movie.
There's a 4K director's cut coming out next month.
Now, what is this? I didn't read the article. What exactly is it?
It's like a 65-page book. It's like a collector's edition of the film, and Martin Scorsese wrote the intro up to the book.
Really?
And I don't know what the intro. I don't know what's in it.
But what an interesting contrast there for someone like Scorsese to be on that.
Well, and Scorsese is, he made the the Last Temptation of Christ? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's very biblical, and I think he was actually going to be a preacher before he became a director. Or a priest, or he was going into some type of
fatherhood,
clergy, yeah. And so I think he looks at a movie like Midsommar, and he definitely sees the religious implications in it, and he probably. I like I said, I got to pick up a copy and read what he says, but I'm sure he probably is tying those connections to it in some way. And plus, Ari Aster is just one of those emerging filmmakers that the boost of someone like Scorsese is going to get his, he's going to rise his status a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, I would say so. Anytime you can have your name attached to one of the greats.
He's actually working on another film right now. It's going to be 4 hours. Ari Aster is a 4-hour horror film.
That's clearly just going to go straight to some streaming platform, right?
I don't know.
No theater is going to...
We'll see.
Outside of these small indies, we'll see. 4 hours? Woo, you're pushing it. Don't get me wrong. If it's good, I'm all for... I like longer. I do like 3-hour films as long as they're done well. Okay, so we've kind of set this up, but I want to kind of talk about where we're at right now. A lot of people have talked to me about, what movies are you watching? I got to be honest with you. This is a very hard time. I already had a stigma before the whole quarantine started with anything platform, streaming device, movies, right? I haven't found a lot of Netflix originals or Amazon originals, up in, let's say, before 2020 that I thought to be any good, let alone, maybe it's because of the lack of promotion and I just don't know about them. I'm not, but I have tried a few over the years and I wasn't a big fan of that. What was that one that came out last year with Sandra Bullock or a couple of years ago?
Bird Box.
Bird Box.
That's a poor example.
It was shot well. It got a lot of momentum behind it. I watched it because everybody told you had to.
And it had the memes and stuff. And it was just like, it was a part of a moment that everybody was watching it.
Tiger King.
And you felt like you had to be part of the conversation.
Sure. And that's where, but just Bright.
I didn't watch Bright.
That was another one.
I think I made it about maybe 50 minutes of Bright. But no, Netflix, though, is... Yes, some of their originals are not up to snuff.
And then you add on all of the Adam Sandler stuff that he was trying.
Yes. Trust me, I'm with you. But you got to look at recently. Did you watch Defy Bloods? Spike Lee's new film.
Nope.
Vietnam homage, like Apocalypse Now homages in that. But that just released a couple weeks ago, and it's one of the best movies of the year.
Really?
And I'm not saying that just because we're living in a world where we can't go to the theaters and judging by what's in theaters, but I think it is just overall one of the best movies of the year.
If that movie was on the big screen, you're saying it would hold up, period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Netflix is, there are a lot of movies that they're making that would hold up on the big screen. The Irishman. I actually saw The Irishman in a theater, and it held up, and I was like, this is just an excellent movie in and of itself. So they got the right model going, and they're attractive to filmmakers because they give them the reins to make the film that they want. And so when you get that, you get the Spike Lees, you get the Martin Scorseses, you get the Ava DuVernays.
Sure.
And then you get, like, When They See Us, the limited series that aired. That was a 4-part miniseries, but that was just as cinematic as anything you would have seen on the big screen.
But doesn't it ultimately undercut the very medium that made them fall in love with the art in the first place? So as a child, I can remember going to the movies and that being so such a cathartic experience for me. It's silent. It's a little chilly. You got your popcorn, your candy, this huge screen. You're experiencing something with strangers. Nobody's really talking, but we're all aware of what we're sharing. And now even though there's a quarantine here, I understand that, but it feels like the more freedom they have with these Netflix, Amazon Prime, these types of platforms, they're going to kind of gravitate more to that side and less towards these, motion pictures that are going to be for the big screen. And there's a lot of other variables there. I understand that. But doesn't that hurt their overall thing that made them fall in love with that? Or is it just the times change?
Well, I think that's right. I think we're heading in this direction. We were already heading in this direction.
We were, yep.
And the coronavirus just spiked it up, like, no pun intended, but it definitely is now influencing more of those decisions that are being made, right? Because you have movies that would have otherwise been released in theaters are now going direct to streaming. So Universal has done a very experimental way of releasing their films. Like the movie that sparked a huge uproar was Trolls World Tour, kids film. and seriously, like, you never thought that Trolls World Tour would be this trailblazer for direct to consumer entertainment.
Sure.
But so that movie was released on premium video on demand instead of waiting it out and going to theaters. Okay. When a movie releases on streaming, or like iTunes in this case, any digital platform, the studios get a bigger cut of the profits.
Okay.
So $19.99 was the rental cost for Trolls World Tour. Universal claims to have made over $100 million. So Universal gets a bigger cut of that pie, but in lieu, it's not going to theaters. Now, the argument is a big picture, like your Fast and Furious franchise, your
blockbusters, sure.
Those cannot survive on the streaming platforms for that price because they're not going to make their money back. See, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, they have different metrics for how they determine a successful film. So, like Irishman, for them to be successful, A, I guess new subscribers, you want new subscribers, and B, how many times was it viewed in a 28-day period? And in that case, it was like, it broke the record. It was like, 85, 90 million people had watched Irishman in 28 days. So that's, and that's just where we're heading. And like I said, this is just kind of amplified. I think eventually what you're going to see is that Disney is going to either buy AMC theater chain or Amazon's going to buy it, and maybe. And you're only going to see the big pictures at the theaters, and you're only going to see these smaller scale pictures like Defy Bloods. Example, and to answer that question, to revert back to what you were saying about the medium that they were working in, does it hinder that? Spike Lee made BlacKkKlansman, right?
Sure.
And that movie he won an Academy Award. First time he won a competitive Oscar.
Yep.
He got an honorary Oscar, but this was the first time he won one for what he did.
Right.
Made $100 million worldwide off a $15 million budget. Now tell me, does that sound rating? Is that successful?
That's very successful.
He couldn't get Defy Bloods made anywhere else.
Really?
Except Netflix.
Really?
So to answer your question, no, because if these studios actually cared about these voices and instead of box office dollars and bottom line grosses, which it just is inevitable, that's just, you got to make money, right?
Sure, yeah.
Then these filmmakers wouldn't be going there. Netflix was like, we'll give you all the money you want.
But maybe it does change. So maybe there's another route that you can go with it. Maybe it does. give them the maybe they come back with these studio heads and come back and say, okay, we'll give you some more of those freedoms again if you come back and make your pictures here, you know, in these big studio pictures. And hopefully, I guess it's just me.
Dude, Martin Scorsese can't even get a picture made. Irishman was a setup at Paramount, and then it went to Netflix.
Right.
And listen to this. He's also got another film coming out with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro called Flowers of the Killer Moon or something.
Yep.
You've heard of it? Maybe you've heard of it. So that was going to be distributed by Paramount, but then Paramount balked at the budget, and what did they do? They had Apple came in and saved the day, and now Apple ponied up the budget.
So now it's going to be on Apple.
Now Paramount is going to distribute it into theaters, but it will be Apple's movie. Does that make sense? So it's going to go to theaters.
Yep.
I think you're going to start seeing maybe more of those partnerships. Maybe those movies, those small movies, will get made because they're going to have financial backers like that.
But there's only so many summer blockbusters. I mean, well, there seems to be a lot more than ever, but there's only so many of those, and I feel like you're going to have a lot of theaters shut down. You're going to have to drive further to go to the movies, you know. And they're talking about opening drive-ins again, which maybe they're just going to. So those are going to be on nostalgic feel.
Well, my thing about drive-ins is drive-ins have been there's been drive-ins every summer. Drive-ins, the drive-ins that are open now have been open since last year.
But they're talking about building two more. One in Lenawee County, one in one in Adrian, one in Blissfield.
I did hear about that.
It sounds like if those two small cities are talking about getting drive-ins, it's got to be a matter of fact everywhere else that there's a resurgence of it.
And it's because of the whole social distancing guidelines.
Yep.
Although I do think it's a little bit contradicting that you can go to a bar. Well, I guess now you can't because Whitmer signed the executive order today. But for a while there, you could go to a bar and close counter and spaces, but you couldn't go sit in a movie theater.
You know, and I listened to you and Matt talk about masks in COVID. Talk about that on your last episode a little bit, and it's one of those things where it's this is that part where I've kind of made up my mind now. I'm past the point where we as a country need to. I feel like we're still tipping our toe in the water. We're just kind of dipping our toe in the water.
It's going to get much worse.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I would rather them shut the entire country down for...
Like Italy. Go lockdown. Totally Italy lockdown.
A full throttle...
We'd be done.
4 to 6 weeks, just shut it down, or let us all go. And what I mean by that is let people make their decisions based on themselves. Because I hate to say this, but it's to the point where... I heard your argument on the mask, and I totally understand. There's not really a lot of things that I can say to combat why you should wear a mask. Let me give you only one I can think of, okay? I wear a mask where I go. But there are some places that I don't, and I'll tell you why. I'm getting ready to be in an environment in August, because I'm a school teacher. I've got to go back to be a school teacher, where I have to be around 200 and some kids, right? And you're telling me that kindergarten through fifth graders are always going to have their mask on. They're not going to.
No.
And it's going to be a point where they're not going to social distance because they're not fully understanding what that means.
Yeah.
So I want my immune system because I also know the health side of things. I know how the body works on side of things because I went to school for that. So you got to look at your body like this. Your immune system is a bunch of frontline soldiers, right? And if you tell everybody to quarantine, stay in your house, use hand sanitizer, wear a mask every time you go out, the one time that we get back to society, your immune system, your frontline soldiers are not going to be prepared to fight. So there are antibodies and there are things that you have got to be training your soldiers every single day while you're going at it. Now, I'm somebody who's taking a cautious risk by saying I've never drank, smoked in my life. I'm 33 years old. The mortality rate of 33 or 30-year-olds that are
low risk.
We're low risk. So we should be out there at movie theaters. We should be out there at bars. We should be out there pushing the economy along. Now, with that being said, I don't want to give it to my grandparents in any shape or form.
Yeah.
But I also know that my grandparents aren't going to be, if they are a quote-unquote high risk or if they have immune deficiencies or any of those things that are on that spectrum, they're not going to be out in those situations as it is. So I just kind of wish the leadership of the country would come together and make a decision as a whole unit instead of 50 different leaders making 50 different decisions.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought process on that. But I don't know, man. Where are we at with, because you said it yourself, you think a lockdown number 2 is coming. What does that do with, let me ask you this question. Are studios making movies right now?
There's a lot of things that are in post-production. I know they just started back up production of the Avatar sequels in New Zealand because their lockdown has been lifted.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, they got that all under control, and I know that there's a Netflix film. I can't say the director's name, but he's an Icelandic director, and they're filming a film right now, and they've come up with these very enhanced procedures and protocols to remote film with actors and stuff. So they seem like that's going to be the new normal. But as far as like, I think Mission Impossible is restarting production in September. The Stranger Things season 4 is going to start ramping up here again in September in certain areas with new social distancing measures in place. So, but we're going to be feeling the fallout of the coronavirus. I mean, not thankfully, but a lot of content has been pushed into 2021.
Sure, yeah.
Like, Fast and Furious moved to 2021 next year.
That was supposed to be the big summer this year, yeah.
Yeah, it was coming out this year. Universal had a crazy lineup of films. Like, if this was going to be the first year where I thought Disney wasn't actually going to be on top for once. Wow. And, and so that just kind of got all scooted to next year. So not very many films are being made right now.
So if that's the case, so you said that we actually haven't even seen the fallout from this yet.
I don't think so. I really think, especially once we get to fall and winter, when we don't know how it's going to evolve and how it's going to react in the seasonal temperatures and changes, and we're already seeing it today. I read that Florida, 100,000 cases, single day record today.
Yep.
This thing started in February, March. So like it's just going to keep snowballing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that go.
Warner Brothers is very ambitious if they think Tenet is coming out on August 12th.
Yeah, so that got pushed back. That was a July, right?
July 17th, then July 31st.
Now it's August 12th. That's very curious.
Because Christopher Nolan really wants. He's that director that believes in the theatrical experience.
He is my dude.
Yeah. He's the one that wants to preserve it, and I really think he does want to be the first film to open back up because he needs people to rally around it.
But to me, there's something to
now.
That.
August 12th seems like a fallacy.
See, when I think about Christopher Nolan and just that venture that he's trying to take on himself, that's what I was trying to get at. Is that I get all of the money and all the reasons why these filmmakers would use these platforms, these streaming platforms. I get it. The point is, though, is that the question I have is, would a young Martin Scorsese, Spielberg, Malick, Kubrick, would any of these guys, would they have been motivated or some type of, as a young person, sitting on their own couch watching these films? Without, you understand what I'm saying? If you're watching these films from the comfort of your own living room, does it lose the magic and the mystique of, I can't wait someday to make a motion picture and put it on the big screen? Like, to me, it's that thought that drives them in the first place. Right, and it's not just the medium of making movies, it's the idea of seeing it in this larger-than-life fashion.
And I think that also in those people that you listed, it really also depends on the filmmaker, because I'm sure Spike Lee would have loved to have made The Five Bloods for a big screen, a big theatrical experience. And a lot of these filmmakers are compromising because, Judd Apatow's The King of Staten Island, originally scheduled for a theatrical release. They're making compromises. Like, well, we can keep pushing it to next year, or we can just give it to people right now.
And I love that for now.
Yeah,
My fear...
that might be the new normal, though. Like, there might be small... But you're still going to have movie theaters, like, for your Tenets, for your Wonder Woman, the big stuff. And filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, obviously, are a dime a dozen because they... he's like one of those pioneers.
He's preserving.
He's really trying, and he makes original films. He's like one of the only few filmmakers these days that can actually put his name above a title, and it can open to $40 million off no existing property. You know who else is doing that right now? Is Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele is really making his name for himself.
He's transformed that entire genre.
Yes.
I mean, all right, welcome back, everybody, to Bobby Talks. I'm still sitting here with Nate Adams, the one and only, the only critic. You can catch him at theonlycritic.com. What's your Instagram?
Only Critic. The Only Critic. All around. Only Critic for everybody.
Right before we went to break, we were talking about resistance to change, and off camera, I have openly admitted to him that I am having a hard time. I'm having a hard time, and I'm somebody that doesn't normally get stuck in my ways on anything, but I went today. I went to go get a haircut, and the place I normally get a haircut at didn't realize they closed. And I'm like, wow, this is really affecting me. In a way that it
like you said, we're losing a lot more than we're gaining.
Yeah, but that's just with the coronavirus. I meant like when we were talking about the theaters and just the entire experience that comes with that. Maybe it's because I am the art indie guy that does like the Peanut Butter Falcons of the world.
Yeah, you don't watch like any Marvel, Star Wars films?
No, and I see you got really excited about and maybe it wasn't you. Maybe somebody posted it on your Facebook talking about how Ben Affleck is back as Batman.
Yeah, that doesn't excite me as much as Michael Keaton being back as Batman.
Ben Affleck is not the best Batman. I don't know why people... No. I think he's on the bottom end of that.
Well, and speaking of Christopher Nolan, I'll die on this hill. I think The Dark Knight is the best superhero film. Like, there's no question. Period. And nothing will beat it ever.
I went back and watched all three of those during this quarantine.
And they're just it's a perfect trilogy.
It is. It's about as close as you're gonna get with anything.
It's just like each one is just stellar. Obviously, the second one is the best.
Yep,
The Dark Knight is which is that's rare in of itself. For a sequel is better.
You know, I think the first one kind of, because the second one's great, and the
so
third
good.
one's great, but the first one's
really, people forget how good the Batman Begins was.
It's such a great origin story.
Yes, and you're right. People don't, because like even Dark Knight Rises gets a lot of.
I love the Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises is good, but yeah, people forget about Batman Begins. It's like, dude, don't forget where you came from.
No, I agree. And you know what I think it is though? I think it's the performances by Hardy and Ledger in 2 and 3 are just so great. I think because
it was Gillian Murphy was the Scarecrow. Cecilian Murphy.
Yeah, I love him.
He's good too. But yeah, it's no. And then Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, but he doesn't own the screen quite like Hardy or a Ledger does. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, I was with you though. The origin story I think is great. I had to go back and watch those, but
I know they're good. They're great.
So something interesting you were talking about off camera here was that you said, for those that don't know, there's a 90-day window. Okay, and you said this is going to change. Explain to the listeners what a 90-day window is in the film world and what's going to change about it.
So 90-day window is the theatrical exclusivity that a film has. So a movie like Tenet opens in theaters on August 12th. The National Association of Theater Owners has it outlined that film must play exclusively in theaters for 90 days prior to being available VOD. I think it's actually 75 days for a digital release, and then 2 weeks later you can get a physical copy.
Okay, so VOD is video on demand.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have so that's 75 days for a digital, and then 90 days for physical media. So that window has been in place actually not that long, since like 2010. So the studios, and it was actually much bigger before that. Dude, you remember seeing like a movie like The Sixth Sense?
Yeah,
would came out like in like August. You wouldn't see it on DVD until like March, dude.
Yeah,
it would take forever.
And to me, there's something about, and this is what I was talking about losing something. I feel like we're losing something. Is yes, I in a perfect world, I don't know why I'm clinging to the old model of theater. Then you wait. Then it hits the pay-per-view.
Well, it's the whole streaming. It's the whole binging model. Netflix has changed we want it now. We want to gobble up content. We don't want to wait. We want it now.
But they throw you so much content at you that it feels like you're watching something different than I'm watching now.
But here's my argument for against the 90-day window. I know that you kind of like that whole thing, but here's the thing. That's why I think it should be shrunk. Okay, so it's been shown, studies, a movie makes 85 to 90% of its gross in its first 3 weeks of release.
Okay.
Long gone are the days of Titanic where each week it's going to make more money than it did last week and play for 12 weeks at number one. That will never happen again in our lifetime.
Really?
Mark my words.
I think. Oh, well, okay. I mean, yeah, I think I agree with you for the most part. I think you might have some movie that could be made that captures the hearts of, like a Passion of the Christ.
Well, I think the last movie to do was Avatar, and that was number one for 8 weeks in 2009. I remember following that very closely, and it kept making more money. Which
is strange because
that movie has probably not. I love Avatar, don't get me wrong, but it has not held up as much as some other things.
Totally agree. But go ahead.
But so. The worry there is if you shorten the window to 45 days, which is what I think it actually should be, is that theaters are worried that if they know a movie's going to be available 45 days after it's in theaters, people are not going to go to the theaters and see it. They're like, well, I'll just wait. And, with the whole COVID thing, we've seen that that's not true because The Invisible Man played in February and then COVID happened and it was on streaming 3 weeks later. And people knew it was in theaters. Maybe they got it because they knew it was coming early. They purchased it. But if it's a big enough movie, like if it's a James Bond movie, if it's something that you really want to see, like a Tenet, people are gonna go see it. They're not gonna wait. If they want to see it, theaters are gonna want to see it. But the other argument to it is that a movie that opens for 1 week and tanks and bombs, why does that movie have all of a sudden have to sit on a shelf for 40 days, 50 days before it's released and can't make any more money?
See, to me, I agree with you. I totally agree with you, and that's why I don't think there should be a one size fits all to it. But with
Netflix tried to do it with The Irishman, and the theater owners said no. Netflix was like. Even the star power of Pacino and Joe Pesci and De Niro and Martin Scorsese could not convince the theater owners to get with the times. And like, dude, people would have went and saw The Irishman in theaters if it was coming out 45 days later on Netflix. I swear they would have.
You think they would have?
Yeah, and I think it would have made a sizable chunk of change.
I guess I'm gonna have to finish that movie. I got 50 minutes into it for opening night.
It's dense. Yeah,
because I gotta tell you, man, like I did start it at midnight, and that was stupid.
Oh yeah,
that was dumb.
It's 3 hours and 20 minutes.
But it kind of goes back to my beef with Goodfellas.
Oh,
which again, or maybe. Which one is the Goodfellas? Is the one? Yeah, that's Scorsese.
Ray Liotta. Yeah,
that's the one. Is Pesci's in that, right?
Pesci's in that,
and that the whole movie's narrated, right?
Yeah, it's got the narration aspect to it for sure. Yeah,
I just think it takes too long to get to the meat and potatoes of that movie.
I mean, Scorsese likes to draw.
And I love Scorsese.
He lets shots lingers on longer than they need to, and it happened in The Irishman, like certain things. But I think that's his thing. It's what he likes to do.
But I much prefer The Departed.
Departed's good, yeah.
Than The Goodfellas.
Yeah. Probably like Wolf of Wall Street more too, don't you?
Oh, I love Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street's amazing.
I'm partial to that too because of Leonardo DiCaprio and the entire cast and all the cameos and whatnot. But I prefer those over a Goodfellas because the Goodfellas is just like a slow burn and it's building, and you really have to hang on to that to get to the end that has that. And don't get me wrong, there's always a payoff. And I know it was coming with The Irishman. I just started it too late. I'll finish it, and I'm sure I'll love it. But that was always my beef with the Goodfellas. Is just like, dude, this is just taking too long to get to the meat and potatoes of this film. So, but anyway, so sticking on point though is that I just don't think there should be a one size fits all. I used to think that when you had to wait for something, like I remember the anticipation of something. Like right now, I feel really stuck with. There's no trailers on TV that I look forward to seeing.
So like this weekend, Hamilton's coming on Disney Plus, and that's like the closest thing to like the summer juggernaut blockbuster. Right. But that's on streaming. That's on Disney Plus.
But how long has that even been promoted? A couple weeks?
Yeah, because they just made the decision, I think, like in May. Yeah. And I know what you're saying, right? You're not seeing the hype.
I miss going to the Oscar movie runs, right? From October till February, where you see all those great movies, right?
Yes.
And seeing all the blockbuster films that are be coming out in the summer, and you're like, Dark Knight, July, it's going to happen. You get your asses ready.
Yeah.
I miss the 6-month buildup. It's torture, but it makes it so much better when you get there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Don't you agree?
Yeah. There's the different seasons. Yeah, exactly. Like once Toronto and Telluride, those film festivals start, that's when it's like, okay, this is Oscar season. This is prime, And when I went to Toronto last year for the first time, that was when I got to experience firsthand. I'm like, this is the hype. This is what it's going to be. Like, and I was in part of the Aurora, and I was at the world premiere of Uncut Gems.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I met Adam Sandler, dude, and I was like, I saw the whole cast. They walked right by me. It was nuts, dude. Like being in there and like you experience. I mean, not getting off in a tangent, but
No,
but
ahead.
just like that's where the theatrical experience feels like it's preserved, right? And a star like Adam Sandler, right, can get like a small A24 film into bigger theaters, and I think that made like $50 million, which for an indie distributor is a lot of money.
And I think that
so maybe that's the other solution to getting those films made too, is you get like a decent star.
You'd probably have
Plus,
to.
Adam Sandler is a comedian, and people I think were interested to see what he could do in a more serious role.
But it's funny because it's not the first time he's done that.
No, and he's great. He's a good actor when he applies himself.
Punch Drunk Love,
the Meyerowitz stories, Spanglish. It just when he does like his Grown Ups 2 or does the Ridiculous 6 or Murder Mystery, that's when it's like, oh, okay, he just wants to. I don't know.
For a minute there, it felt like money grab, but somebody, I think it might have been the Rewatchables, was talking about how he just likes making films with his friends.
Right.
And that might be to the core just who Adam Sandler is. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, so when he gets together with his friends, you get a movie like Grown Ups. But see, on the other hand, you get a Seth Rogen, and he gets together with his friends, and they make This Is the End, which is hilarious.
Yes, I love that movie.
They get together and they make a movie, and it's actually funny. So I don't know where I think the difference is in the capabilities of writing a smart script.
And less maybe is more sometimes.
Yeah.
Michael Cera stole that movie. I thought.
For his brief cameo.
Yeah. But getting back to the whole idea, though, of I just feel like there. That's why I love.
There are movies coming out. There are things happening, not.
But the idea of like with the Rewatchables, this podcast that you opened up my eyes to. And if you guys don't know what it is, the Rewatchables is a podcast with Bill Simmons. There's Chris.
It's on the Ringer podcast network on Spotify.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it's great. And it's just basically they go back and they'll watch a movie that they've loved.
They have categories, and it's really solid stuff.
Really great. But what I love about that though is the second watch is almost the anticipation. If you loved a movie in theaters, the second watch is almost as exciting as the first. And that's why sometimes I know we both do it. We'll go and watch a movie again. We'll buy a ticket to go see it again on the big screen because we can't wait to see that movie again. It was so good. Yeah. When that movie leaves theaters, back in the old days, you used to have to wait. Like you said, if The Sixth Sense, you had to wait from August to March.
And the thing is, too, like a movie like Sixth Sense is that this is pre-internet era where you can now go online and have a film discussion about it. People can go in depth on discussion boards. You couldn't do that.
Yep.
And obviously the big twist at the end of Sixth Sense was that Bruce Willis' character was dead. And so people had to go back and see it because like, okay, I got to see how they pulled this twist on me.
Right.
And so nowadays you don't have to do that. Yeah, people can have they can leave a theater, get on their phone, tweet about it, and start an instant thread of discussion
right away. And that part I do love. I do love that connectivity there. I do love. I wouldn't want to lose that. It's just something about, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just stuck and maybe I'm talking too much on this, but I just think there's something. Valid. There's just something to it, and I don't know. I just I hope we somehow can preserve maybe a better marriage than what we have right now, because I also think, like you said, it is cheaper right now, than taking a family of 4 to the movies. But that in itself is an event. But I also think there's too many streaming platforms now. It's just like you've got Netflix and Amazon Prime and Quibi,
Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus,
YouTube,
Quibi, yeah. The Peacock's coming out. HBO Max just launched.
It's gonna get to a point where it's like
you got to pick and choose. I think most people will have 3. 3 is the magic number.
Why did HBO Max launch and then only do it on so many platforms where you can't?
It's not even on Roku, right? I know.
On Roku.
Thankfully, I have a PlayStation and I can access it from PlayStation, but I mainly get through my Roku, so I find myself being like, oh, I don't want to turn on HBO Max. I got to go through the hassle of turning on my PlayStation and putting it on. I want it on the Roku. But
I feel like if it
had a bumpy launch,
you had to start on Roku. If you can't get it on Roku to start, then you shouldn't even be launching.
Correct.
That's the way.
I agree with you.
Especially HBO. You know better than that. That's just how. I feel.
Come on, HBO.
But anyways, so let's talk about. So we mentioned a little bit about state of the movies as we know it. You said it's going to ship. It's going to look a little bit different going down the road. You feel like the fallout, we haven't even seen the fallout from this yet.
Yeah, I like I said, because like AMC Theaters is like on the verge of bankruptcy. They're losing cash flow like hand over fist, and there's rumors circulating that like an Apple or like an Amazon could swoop in and buy it. I wouldn't be surprised if like Disney, with as much money as they have in their pockets, buys an AMC Theaters, and then they just put all their movies in AMC Theaters, and that's just all you see forever. It's just the big, and Disney knows what it's doing. Disney knows. I think if we're talking effective strategy, Disney with Disney Plus now, they know what's going to be viable for Disney Plus, smaller scale, Artemis Fowl, like crap. And then they know like the big pictures like your Mulan, your Lion King, your Toy Story 4s, all those, and they know how to market those, and they know how to make those events. Because if you looked in 2019, every Disney picture that came out made $1 billion. So like they know how to make the event picture. They have that right formula. And now that they own 20th Century Fox, now 20th Century Studios, they're really, really going to know how to market the adult-driven stuff too.
And it makes you, what's interesting about that is that when you were mentioning them buying AMC Theaters, it only makes sense.
I mean, that's just a theory.
No, but let's say they did. It only makes sense that you get it at the beginning stages, the middle stages, and the end. You've got the production studio side of things where
Yeah, essentially cutting out the middleman, not the pay any distributors, because you would own the theaters.
Yeah, you're
all of the profits.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely, like you said, it could be the direction we're headed.
And that's where theaters are getting scared about this premium video on demand experiment, like the Trolls World Tour analogy that I used earlier. They're getting scared because now they're seeing that, the studios are making money. They don't need it. They're going to cut out the middleman.
But couldn't that movie just be right place, right time?
I think so too.
First movie,
it's an exception to the rule.
We're all like, because I think even like after...
Plus, it was a sequel to a very, very popular film.
Yes. You had Trolls, and then you had the
I want to see the numbers for King of Staten Island before Trolls and see how King of Staten Island did.
And I don't think it...
It did not make $100 million like Trolls, because Trolls had a built-in brand recognition and IP property to it. Yeah. And kids. Kids are stuck at home.
But here's the thing, though. I think all that movie really has going for it is the name Judd Apatow attached to it. I mean...
Did you see it?
No, I haven't.
It was actually pretty good.
No, I'm sure it is. But I'm saying, as far as, is Pete Davidson a household name? No. Is Judd Apatow a household name?
Yes.
I say he's a household name in moviegoers' minds. But I would say to the casual fan,
you see from the director of Knocked Up on the top of his and 4-year-old version, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll fork over $20 for this.
Does that cross over to
and that's a comedy.
Mom and Dad that has... Maybe it does.
And I will say, it did feel different. Like, I was watching King of Staten Island, and I really felt like I was like, man, I did wish I was in a theater laughing with people and experiencing the jokes.
So you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Does it have the heart behind it like a lot of Apatow?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. And my big issue with Apatow is that he doesn't know how to cut his films, because he makes movies that are like 2 hours and 17 minutes. Yep. But and I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but Matthew brought up a good point about how it's like, life is messy, and I make my movies how like my art reflects my life, and like sometimes a conversation goes on a bit longer than it needs to, or a scene stands on longer than it needs to. And, you know, his justification is that, you know, life is messy. And it's like, you know, I respect that. Don't always agree with it, but
that goes back to the Stanley Kubrick argument about just like, that's how he portrays it. He feels like, okay, I mean, that scene is like, you know what, this is going to go a little long on purpose, because sometimes, whether that's just him justifying a really long scene, who knows? But like, I can agree to it.
Did you see the movie A Ghost Story, the David Lowery film with Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck?
No.
Have you heard about the scene with the pie?
No.
Dude,
please.
Okay, you want to talk about uncomfortable. There's a scene in a movie, it's an indie film that came out, I don't know, 2014, and it's called A Ghost Story. I am not kidding. They put the camera on Rooney Mara, and she just destroys a pecan pie. She eats an entire pecan pie in one take, plows it in. This is like 6 minutes. The camera stays on her. It doesn't move.
They show the whole thing.
Whole thing.
It's not jump shotted.
No, she's eating it. She's plowing this pie. And like, you want to talk about being uncomfortable. Sit there and watch that for 6 continuous minutes, just mowing down. So I'm just saying.
So what is the point of that? What is the point of that?
It's art. I can't defend it because, you know, it's their interpretation, what they want to do. You know, I had a professor in college, you know, I had a script writing class. And, you know, she never really could grade us because she was like, you know, this is how you see it. Like, how can I grade what you're trying to do?
Sure. And I understand that. And to a certain extent.
So it's I can't see what
But here's my question to the artist there. What is our art for? And I guess the answer is it's for multiple reasons. One, maybe the artist there never meant or cared for anybody to ever watch that. Maybe it was a therapeutic release and that's their way of expressing. I can't say anything to that. Like, my buddy just showed me an album of a gentleman. I forget the name. It's I've lost it, but it was a concept album. Basically, a lot of it is written word, which means there's not a lot of rhyming that takes place throughout the album. And the album was about him losing his his wife.
Oh.
And the issues that I took with the album is that there's no contrast, and it feels like it's a therapeutic release for this gentleman. But it for the audience member, unless
it doesn't. So like you felt like it was a good release for him, but it didn't work for you.
Yeah, because there's nothing.
That's how I felt about Honey Boy.
Oh my gosh,
Shia LaBeouf's movie.
I will push back on that so much.
It felt like he was making a movie for himself, and I respect that, and it's good. But I did not connect with it.
Really? Yeah. Maybe it's more of the what's your relationship like with your father?
I have a good relationship with my father.
See, and mine's at best. My father wasn't there for me growing up.
Sure. So
to me, there's a little bit more that.
So you connected with it, yeah, and that's fine.
Right.
And that's fine.
So yeah, there is that. But that was kind of going back to this, was that I felt like, okay, there's nothing there. So it made me ask the question, should this even been created? And I guess the answer is yes, because like you said, Honey Boy didn't work for you, but it did for me, and maybe I'm just not the audience for that.
And that's what happens a lot. Like, but somebody might have, yeah.
My question is who the hell is the audience for Rooney Mara eating 6 minutes worth of pie? Who's the audience there?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. But here's the thing: is that I'll never forget it. And so maybe it's seared into my brain. I will never not remember that.
But would you ever go out of your way to say you have to see this piece of art?
Yeah, probably not. It was maybe. See, that's where it comes in. I'm like, there's a lot of good stuff in that film, and like a lot of but yeah, the 6 minutes.
How about props to Rooney Mara, who's a petite thing, not a big girl.
Destroyed that pecan.
Just destroyed a pecan.
Destroyed it.
Wow.
Like, because her husband dies in the film, which is what the Ghost Story is about, and he kind of he has a white sheet. It's a very weird film, but it's weird in a good way. And I like weird. I love weird. So a neighbor brings her the pie, and then she sits, and then just like out of the blue, the camera and the ghost is standing in the corner.
Okay,
he's with the sheet, watching her eat the pecan pie. I gotta look it up. I gotta see how long that was.
What was the name of this movie again?
It's called A Ghost Story.
Okay, I think I can visualize the cover if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was just the guy in the sheet. Yeah.
You know, weird is good. I agree. Weird can go one of two ways though. Like I like a movie to kind of have quirky and different characters, protagonists and kind of antagonists. It's fine as long as it's not servicing that so much to be so different. You know, because sometimes you can do it too much. I was listening to your last podcast where you talked about your top 10 movies so far of the year.
Were you surprised? Or
I was a little bit, yeah. And to be honest with you, there's some of there I just haven't heard of yet.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it. And I think a lot of that's got to do to, I'm a basketball coach, so January and February, I don't see a lot of films because I'm constantly in that world.
Right.
And as soon as that ended, I can remember it like it was yesterday. School ended on March 13th. That was the last day. That was a Friday. That's when Governor Whitmer, shut everything down in the state. I went and saw The Way Back that Friday. My season ended on Wednesday the 11th. I went to school on the 12th. I didn't go to school on Friday the 13th, even though everybody else did. I took a me day. I went and saw The Way Back at like the 1 o'clock showing, and then by the time I got out of there, they had shut everything down.
Yeah, you probably knew it was coming too. Like, I had to get to the theater.
Yeah, I did. And it was
last thing I saw was Bloodshot, so you got me beat because The Way Back is a much better film.
It was a much better film, but I will say this: I feel,
and that's a small scale project that could have easily went to a streamer too.
It could have. I actually thought it might. Not with the. I thought they were going to just start dumping all of these movies,
and they did. They started putting them.
Did The Way Back?
The Way Back came out early. Like
really,
they got as soon as theaters closed, they came out early.
Oh, I missed that. I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this: I enjoyed that movie. I did.
That made my best of the year so far.
Yeah, I know it did. I think maybe by comparison to everything else, maybe that's why I felt. I do think it was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I just I kind of got a little.
You're a coach, so you can ride.
Yeah, but
you're not an alcoholic though.
But I'm not. But but that was kind of the thing. It was like, okay, we get it, guys. Like I felt like they just spent one scene too many showing us him drinking and overly drinking.
It was a metaphor for Ben Affleck's metaphorical comeback too.
I did not know that
because he was going through a divorce. And
this was from Gardner?
Yeah, Jennifer Garner going through the divorce. All the stuff with the Batman, Fallout, the Justice League. I mean, all that negative online, Live by Night wasn't that big of a hit. He directed that after Argo. I liked it. I defend it. A lot of people didn't, got trashed. So, like, he just kind of went in this slump. And I think that this movie was supposed to be his, like, redemption. Okay. And he's slowly back on the...
Now that's good because I enjoy...
So I think it was probably cathartic for him.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's good. So maybe that's the best thing to do is to jump into a piece like that, like a Shia LaBeouf did. Just jump into what scares the hell out of you and see how you feel on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So, no, that's good. Well, I'll tell you what, man. We're down to the final 5 minutes here. What's going on? What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I did watch Hamilton. I did get to see it. The film staged production when they had the original cast. And anybody that has any, this is a good introduction if you don't like theater, because I think this has something for everybody.
Okay.
And it's just so important in these times of like racial and political uncertainty that Lin-Manuel Miranda does this terrific job and took these bold liberties because it's about Alexander Hamilton and one of our founding fathers, and he tells the story of the framework of our country being built. Okay. But he uses it by casting non-traditional actors in the roles, right? Thomas Jefferson's played by Divi Diggs, who is an African-American. Lin-Manuel Miranda is Latino. And so it's so important and such a crucial musical because it paves the way for a new era of diversity and inclusion in theater. So it's very important, I think, for this moment that we're living in, that this musical that came out 5 years ago is still as relevant today as it was then. It has not aged a minute. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but let me tell you, 2 hours and 40 minutes has never flown by as fast as it does in that.
I've heard that it's one of those pieces of art that you just don't want to ever stop.
Right, and it's I'm very grateful that Disney is releasing it to the masses because they were going to originally release it in theaters, and then I think they saw that with everything going on, COVID, it feels like a public service in a sense because now it's just going to be beamed into our homes, and probably they were looking at their slate and they probably needed to figure out how to, they paid the money for it so they can just, they paid $75 million for it to acquire it. So obviously they wanted to make some box office, but dude, this is going to lure subscribers like crazy. But I really, really recommend it. It's one of the best things I've seen this year.
And you saw like you said, you saw the
And I saw it live. Yep, I saw it here. I was actually on opening night when it premiered here in Detroit. First time in Michigan.
Wow.
And it was...
What a hard ticket to get.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate, and I was like in the third row. And I was right up there. I could see it. I could visualize it, but but this is important, because it's the original cast.
Sure.
Not many people get to claim that they have seen the original cast. My friend Matthew, who's been on my podcast, did get to see it with the original cast, and he reminds me frequently.
He's got it on your face.
Yeah. But you don't get the up close shots like the camera angles, the way it's framed and the way it's filmed. Like you can see the sweat glistening from faces. You can see certain facial expressions. The way that the filmmaker takes one shot and he cuts to another shot, it adds new context to the song. So
that you would never have gotten inside the theater.
Inside a theater. I'm not saying it doesn't beat the live experience because it doesn't, but this is the closest thing we're gonna get. But it's just incredible. It's one of the best filmed Broadway shows that I've ever seen done, and it's going to set the bar, I think. But that's just in time for the holiday weekend, and I think if you got some time, it's definitely worth a check. I mean, that's about it. And listen to Picks and Pans and check out the website for reviews. You know, I cover a lot of content. My
man is a busy man. He like I said, he's the host of Picks and Pans. He is constantly doing his quarantine catch up, which I encourage you guys all to do. If we do get hit with another lockdown, it's going to be one of those things.
Quarantine catch up part 2. Yeah.
Quarantine catch up part 2, but it's going to be one of those things where you're going to need entertainment. And what better thing to do than go
back in the archives?
It's already there. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we've all missed.
And people ask me, like, how did I never seen some of these movies? And it all comes down to accessibility.
Yep.
We have movies now that we never had access to at our fingertips.
Yep.
It's so easy for me to put on my Roku and go into the Apple store, and I can rent it on my phone, and then it beams on my TV. That movies like Dial M for Murder.
I love that movie.
Alfred Hitchcock, classic movies that the only way you could watch them back in the day was if they were coming on TV and you caught it at the right time.
Rear Window,
yeah. You had to be like, oh, it's going to be on at 8 p.m. I got to set aside time for it. You don't have to do that now. Now I can just bump it into my phone. So that's the main reason too, because I grew up. We didn't I didn't have access to some of this stuff. Yeah, my local video store, they didn't carry all these old movies. So I'm making up for lost time.
And if they did, they were scratched, delete. You had to. Put the toothpaste on the back of the CD trying to get that. Maybe that was only me. I don't know.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So, definitely the accessibility. I can totally get on board with that. I just want to say thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Totally appreciate it. It's always fun when the two of us sit down. Next time, hopefully we can actually talk more films, more, something hopefully that's going to be coming up on the big screen here soon.
Hope so. We'll see. Hopefully, it's so uncertain right now. We don't know. Hopefully we see Tenet on August 12th. If not, well, I don't think we'll see movies till Christmas.
Fingers crossed. Christmas. Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Talks, ... Always more to the story. We're going to put a pause on this story for now. We'll see our man down the road. We'll see you down the road. Enjoy.